Well, it has only been 2 years since I've used Spongecry.AVI, and I'm far from recovering from such a shock after viewing that clip. My computer's been taken to Best Buy for repairs and to hopefully have the Spongecry.AVI video eliminated from my PC forever. Hopefully, it will not haunt the doorsteps of my mind ever again. I should be getting a call from them at the end of the week, if not longer. That due to my well-being world of good to see for that godforsaken video of SpongeBob crying and turning into a decomposing mess every 10 seconds gone forever. But one question lingers after I looked at the video clip that day. Who in the hell wrote one-time action would be badly anyway? I went to a hacker friend of mine who was able to translate the gobbledygook at the video, and maybe he could tell me what it meant. He was much more braver than I was to view Spongecry.AVI, and he asked me to leave the room. 17 years old, I had a lot of favor, but after all, he was my best friend, and was willing to do anything I heard him say to me. Dude, it's fine. You can come back in, video's not playing. After decompressing the text from the original SpongeCry video, which indeed written all of a preschoolers, and here's what he said. One time's actions will be deadly. I looked at him skeptically. What does that mean? I asked him. The voice I heard on the radio, that of SpongeBob crying, was not Tom Kenny at all. He replied, Well, that's all fine and dandy and everything, but what the hell does that have to do with the text you just translated? He picked up his bottle of Pepsi that he had been drinking, took a swig, and placed the glistening wet bottle down on his desk. Dude, he said calmly, I'm getting to that. Don't worry, the shitty-looking scribble, when I looked at it, was all just written by a preschooler. It's too real to be CGI or used in any video editing software. It was written by a person on an actual animation cell, which could explain why the Crayola crayon writing looked so real. When we hit the road from Malibu to Los Angeles City, looking for answers, my friend was planning to have the video analyzed and pieced together. The puzzle from the video was made, so that wasn't Tom Kenny's voice, I asked him, as when I watched the sun go down over Malibu horizon drove. After all, it should be 50 minutes till we reach Los Angeles. It was a woman's voice. Tom Kenny himself would not break down and cry that real intensely when he was doing every episode of SpongeBob. You see, SpongeBob crying in any episode, you know it's comical, but the woman who is heard crying in place of Tom, something didn't seem right, he said. After going to the police with his story, here's what they said. On the one episode of SpongeBob SquarePants, Tom Kenny, who's never missed a voice acting session of his life, took a sick leave and the episode was put on hold. A woman in her mid-20s had the same voice in the SpongeCry video. She claimed she was a family member of Tom, and she said she would do any SpongeBob character known to man, especially SpongeBob, and asked her production crew, even Steven Helleberg, the show's creator, if she could fill in for Tom while he was out sick. They didn't seem any harm in that one, but one weird thing I couldn't put my finger on is, why would this woman ask the animation audio crew to leave the room? Did she want to do this herself? She was really talented in animating and voice acting. Sure, it may seem like it, since nobody allowed her to enter the recording studio where the voice actors went, and since it was soundproof, this gave the woman lots of time to do the cartoon. I also found out that the cartoon was originally going to be no weenies allowed, but this woman had entirely different plans for this episode. She looked at the script and then she looked near the microphone, where Tom Kenny originally stands. She was about to say her lines, and for no apparent reason, she breaks down crying, screaming as if crying over a loss of a loved one, or finding a dead family member dead from a heart attack. Again, nobody bothered her. Nobody came into the studio, and what seemed like eternity was actually 90 minutes. The woman came out of the studio looking normal, even though she had teary-looking eyes, ran into Bill Fagerbagle, the voice of Patrick Star. Fagerbagle asked her, "You okay?" And she told him that her tears were from laughing too hard after reviewing the finished episode and smiled. Bill chuckled and commented on her doing a good job, and that was the end of the day. My friend's mother, who worked as a phone tapper, for LAPD was able to identify the voice. The voice you heard in that clip was his ex-girlfriend, one of the animators at Nickelodeon Animation Studio. She had been stalking an animator after he got married, and when he blew her off so many times, her actions became more and more erratic. She even went as far as to kill and disembowel his poor dog. Other officers caught and arrested her for animal cruelty and stalking, my friend's mother told me. But why did that clip last nearly 7 minutes, and that handwriting was done by a preschooler? What about that, I asked. That message was written by the woman's 3-year-old son, as per request. The cartoon itself was supposed to last 30 minutes, like any other SpongeBob episode. The other half of the cartoon became lost on the internet. It can be anywhere. The police commissioner who came in the office was carrying a cup of coffee for me, a soda for my best friend, and a bottle of water for my friend's mom. I overheard you talking about the lost SpongeBob episode that was supposed to be filmed in a place of no weenies allowed, he said, giving us our drinks. What do you know about the cartoon? I asked. I was feeling tired and hungry, and the coffee he gave me should be able to perk me up during this time. I felt like I wanted to sleep for a damn year. Rumor has it that the cartoon never aired, and No Weenies Allowed was shown instead, which was a big load off for everyone's shoulders. My 2 little daughters are big SpongeBob fans, and so am I. Anyway, I was reading an article on Yahoo which said that the cartoon you were talking about got circulated via mobile text message. So if that's the case, anyone who finds it, we could put an end to this mess, the police commissioner said. At that moment where I thought everything was working out fine, my stomach froze. I noticed a message displayed on my iPhone, 1 missed call. I was about to brush it off when I thought about just another telemarketer trying to sell me something, until I noticed the attached item came with a message. What is it, man? My friend asked. He took a look at the concern and confusion in my face. I think I found the cartoon, I replied, my voice nearly fading. Open the video, the police commissioner said calmly. My friend's mom was anxious to see the other half of the cartoon. After the video roared to life, it didn't resume like a video you would see on YouTube when you go on a part 2 or whatever. It showed a regular introduction, with Patchy the Pirate and his jolly old self, kids singing the SpongeBob SquarePants theme, and SpongeBob playing the flute with his nose. After the created by Steven Hillenburg byline was displayed, I didn't hear any music. Just the sound of heart beating. Very faintly, various news reports, audio clips. Authorities continue to release of the murders. They still have no explanation as to why it all happened. I heard then, when the sound of a woman weeping softly was starting to get a little scary. The clips continued. The medical examiner said that he expects positively identified most victims. A file cabinet in the refrigerator and open boxes. The police department continues to be flooded with calls from families from missing their loved ones. He says that he killed even more. Arrest on suspicion, mass murderer, some of the murderers at least been committed outside city limits. The title came up screen that said, Spongecry2, a fucking sequel? Just as I remembered, SpongeBob was in his big red chair, all the furniture was gone, poor little Gary was lying dead, lifeless and mauled beyond recognition. I wanted to cry because I saw Gary dead. Poor little fella. My heart hurt for him, but I tried to remain calm. As SpongeBob continued to get more and more decayed, looking like a putrefied mess after every 10 seconds, he became when he cried. He stopped, turned, and looked to the viewer. His skin was already a mucky-looking mess. Looked like a carrion was wearing his trademark shirt, shoes, and a little red tie. All SpongeBob ever did in the episode was cry, but now he started to speak. So what does it make you to talk to you, Evan? Evan was the name of the animators at Nickelodeon Animation Studio for SpongeBob. Why couldn't it have been you to ask me as your wife instead of Stephanie? She doesn't love you. I loved you. You loved that stupid dog more than me. I know I was stupid to turn you down in high school, but I was a stupid girl back then, and I didn't know any better. I was young and stupid. You happy? I wanted to be your lover, but I was too busy having my head up in Eric's butt just to even care. You're right, I was using Eric and making him look like a fool. I wanted to marry him, but I was too young and stupid. You had every right to threaten me when I was messing with you and your family. It was my own damn fault for costing you a lover all those years ago. I had a mental illness, but I didn't want to tell you because I was afraid you would hate me forever. But I guess you don't you? Georgia told me not to kill your beautiful dog, but I went ahead and did it anyway. I killed your Malamute baby. The reason why I told Georgia about this is because I wanted her to know how sweet you are and how much I loved you. But I guess you're never going to love me, aren't you? Since I was pregnant with our child, and I knew you were never going to love me, I just thought you ruined my life by ruining your favorite cartoon. SpongeBob nearing the decomp. As the lamination of the documentary continued, SpongeBob was now turned into a walking dead skeleton, as carrying more and more violent as he continued to talk. But as I said, this wasn't Tom Kenny's voice at all. This was a mentally insane woman who had been driven away by her every boyfriend she's ever had because of the severe manic depression. She would never admit it to anyone because she would thought it would make her weak, and everyone would leave her, and she would go from popular to unpopular in the blink of an eye. When SpongeBob started to become a graveyard-like skeleton, the inside of his house started to decay from years of neglect. The wallpaper peeling off the wall, and Gary now a putrefied mess. My best friend, despite the fact that he remained calm, puked in the wastebasket after seeing Gary, a dark green puddle of slime and rotting flesh, and his shell now got aged. Until you accept me back into your life, Evan, I'm going to continue to wreak havoc on you. The animators at your precious Nickelodeon studio and your friends and family, and your life in general. You don't deserve Stephanie. I'm so sorry you hate me. I'm so sorry that you didn't want me back in your life. I know we can only be friends, but I don't care if you hate me or not. I still love you. So does Georgia. So do all my friends. Hence, I'm sorry for everything. The next day I remember seeing as scavenged that cartoon was. The crying became much less intense and soft and oddly. SpongeBob's furniture returned to his house, materializing on demand, popping back into place with a comical cartoony pop sound. The wallpaper was inside of this pineapple-like new, shining light from above on the now rotted puddle away from that sludge, now bringing Gary back to life. When I heard an angelic and heavenly choir singing, and a soothing twinkling sound with stardust encircling him, returning him to his happy little self. Gary was alive! Seeing him alive, but on the floor, where he once lay dead, was now producing his cute little snoring meows. The little guy was tired. SpongeBob himself started to come back to life from being a rotting, putrefied skeleton from his spongy, normal self. SpongeBob was still sad, but he went over to where his sleeping snail was. He gave him a kiss on one of his eye stalks and walked back to his bedroom. Still in the woman's voice, I hear her say very softly through her tears, "I'm sorry." Then a television test pattern showed up at the end of the video and had cut to a black sequence. Turns out that the lovesick fatal attraction escort woman was the one behind Spongecry episode. She was one of the point of sought-after horror film animator who had just had a nervous breakdown after she had been dumped, which would explain SpongeBob turning into a ghoul. Creator Steven Hellenberg reported the woman to the police and was scheduled to have her appear in court. She refused to testify against Nickelodeon Animation Studios and later took out her own life out of remorse. I was fortunate enough to delete part 2 of Spongecry episode from my iPhone, and since this whole mystery was solved, I was able to sleep better at night from now on. The little post-mortem advice to a lovesick girl who made Evan's life a living hell. He said that he didn't want anything to do with you, and that he's happy with his new wife and life. And when a guy drops your ass, no means no, bitch.